What's up, everybody? Once again, it is I, James, coming to you from the Nerdy Mewzings podcast studio. I am super excited to be joined today by somebody I would consider to be the first legend status creator that we've had on the podcast. Enter the dude, Mr. Steve Rude. How you doing today, Steve?
Well, before we actually went live here, I was telling you about my situation, my creative situation of being not able to work out this latest set of problems with matching script to art in the latest Nexus thing I'm doing, which is called Return to Earth.
Yes.
So it's a very trying time right now that's kind of pissing me off.
I can imagine. It's always a struggle to put what's in the mind down on the page, isn't it?
Yeah. Life doesn't care about your feelings. It just gives you these circumstances, and you've got to deal with them.
Yeah. Now, is this related to a print comic, or does this have anything to do with the animated stuff that you're working on as well?
Well, the animated work, James, always ties into it somehow. That's probably why I'm always in a stir about this kind of stuff, because I've been working on giving the world this gift of a Nexus animated cartoon show for so long that I wonder about the sanity of the Earth itself.
Yeah.
In that I keep, it's not a big industry, the animation industry. And based on that, and the fact that this thing is, that everyone within the industry should have been aware of this by now, just by seeing the pilot alone on YouTube, is kind of a mystery to me. I don't know what's going on, why I haven't gotten the proper people volunteering to work on this with me. But I think in the end of all this, if I ever get the show, I'm gonna have to relearn a lesson that I've learned hundreds of times, and that is literally that if you don't do it yourself, if you're not completely in charge from the beginning, you will never get what you want.
Yeah.
And that's part of what I'm trying to do here is overhaul the industry situations where creative people are never in charge of their own character.
Yeah, this is true. One of the big struggles is not having that, control from start to finish. And I can imagine that has to be incredibly frustrating, especially in regard to something animated, because you really do need kind of a team to work with, don't you?
I need a team. And after all this time of trying to think that somebody would come to me, I decided to reverse course and start from scratch. And currently, James, I have kind of want ads out on the internet looking for just the right people to want to join me on this. And it's going to be, an insane endeavor to get this working right. But, what else is new in my life?
Well, we're going to definitely make sure we're getting the word out on here. Anybody listening, guys, if you have those skill set, the skill set to help Steve out, definitely hit him up, because it's going to take a very special team to do this project in the right way too, because I know the style of animation that you're going for there, and it's going to be a little trial and error finding the right fit, because I get the perception that you very much have a strong visual in your mind of how that animation should look and how it should be portrayed.
Well, I not only have a strong idea from the very beginning that I started this thing, but since that time, I've accumulated more pre-production artwork. I try to imagine if you're looking at your floor, James, and you rise it up like 5 feet in height.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking at with how much work I've gotten done for a show that has never been made yet.
So all the ingredients are there. It just needs to have the right team to assemble it at this point.
Yeah. Comics can be a one-man show. Animation cannot.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about your fine art background, because I have a lot of artists on here, and they come from the school of, seeing their favorite comic artist and they look at their art and they kind of try to learn from that. But I know you have a fine art background, and I'm interested to know, like, how has that benefited and influenced your comic work? Because I have a feeling that having that deep understanding of the human figure, and I know you're somebody that continues even to this day to hone your craft and do figure drawing and draw from reference and things. Would you say that that fine arts background has been a great asset in your career in comics?
Well, to be specific, my background has always been wanting to be an illustrator. Because to me, anyone who can claim to be an illustrator should have every imaginable skill that an artist should have to work with any medium and rise to any challenge.
Yeah.
And that was always the way the way I am. As far as continuing to push my abilities, that's just my nature. You know, it hasn't changed since I was 18 and had to decide what I was going to do with the rest of my life. I began back then by just taking works of art that I really liked and tried to copy them, and eventually that expanded into wanting to learn how to paint, which all illustrators do with any medium: oil, acrylic, watercolor, and to make it good enough so it's worthy of the people that kind of pointed the way for me. And those people are all the illustrators that came from the mid 1900s.
Yeah.
Those are my heroes.
Well, that's definitely guided your work. And I've seen I've seen a lot of artists, young artists coming up, struggle with wanting to use reference. It almost seems like young artists coming up think that using reference is a bad thing, or learning from reference. Why do you think that is? Do you think having a background in your formal training kind of showed you the necessity of reference, whereas people coming up now, there's like this misconception that using reference is copying versus learning from it?
Well, I'm as in the dark about these misconceptions as you are, James. If people aren't, if they aren't corrected from an early age, and they grow up thinking this kind of nonsense, then I wonder where they got it from in the first place. So it's completely erroneous.
Yeah.
And it's not only that, but it's going to hinder your ability to get better.
Yeah, this is what I see, because it's like there's this mental block in place. I think it's because people confuse it with copying, and drawing from reference, learning from reference is not copying. Anybody who has studied art knows this. So I found it interesting a long time ago when I watched your documentary. You talked about this kind of a inner drive that led to certain decisions in your life that you made. And one of them led to meeting your wonderful wife, and you had another one that directed you into comics and things. So I'm curious, how has that inner drive or that inner voice guided your style and the medium you like to use and influenced your artwork?
So you want to know about the inner drive that I always talk about?
Yeah, you talked about having just like this sense that you needed to do this thing. Like you hitchhiked and it led to meeting your wife at one point, and then you had another point where you hitchhiked and it led to something else, and you just had this deep, like, this is what I have to do. I'm curious, has that same inner voice or inner drive or feeling guided the direction of your art and your career as well?
Well, it always has guided me, and trying to qualify an intangible property like drive or intuition is impossible to actually explain in a way that maybe can help other people. But I just know that I've always had it. It's extremely strong. And I think it's so strong it actually scares other people that are around me.
Yeah. Yeah, some people call it trusting your gut, right? That could be another way.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
But you need it. you need a combination of a life experience and just a need to accumulate knowledge to be able to trust that inner self, because
Yeah.
it develops over time.
Yeah, it really does. Well, it's no secret we both love Jack Kirby. I mean, I'm wearing my Kirby shirt. I've heard you talk about Jack many times. You're the first guest I've ever had on that actually won a Jack Kirby Award. That had to be pretty dang cool.
Well, it was, and yet at the same time, it wasn't like some kind of a big shock to my life. And again, I can't explain that, but when I got to know the Kirbys and other people that influenced my life hugely, it actually felt like kind of a rendezvous with destiny.
Interesting.
That again, I can't really explain, but Peter on Jack in his home was a very relaxing experience, and I found Jack to be as different a human being as anyone I've ever met. He's 100% unique, and his inert kindness and his lack of pretension is like nothing I've ever seen before. He's just a totally real guy
Yeah.
that just shoots from the hip and does what he needs to do and believes in himself. And it was just a fantastic experience every time I was around him.
It had to be phenomenal to be able to see his art in person. Like, I've had the chance to see a few original art pages over the years, but to actually be in his presence, and I'm assuming you got to see where he worked and everything as well.
Yeah, it was in his the last home he lived in, which was a Thousand Oaks home in California. And his home was basically welcome to anybody. He's not one of these snobs that just says, "Don't bother." He invited everybody, and pretty soon we're all sitting around having chocolate cake and milk, or served by rods.
Yeah, I've heard so many stories of her, just treating anybody that visited like gold and feeding them, and, making sure she kept an eye on the art that he was going to let leave, pages he wanted to give people and things. And yeah, it just seemed like such a genuinely special person. When it comes to his prolific work ethic and how he was able to produce so much quality work, like, I mean, he produced massive amounts of work with very imperceivable drop in quality. How do you think he did it? Was it just
Well,
the formula, or it just came from that special mind of his?
it came from the Prussian mentality, James.
Okay.
When you're when you're looking at a time period when everyone was not getting jobs and having to sell apples at a street corner to feed your family, that isn't something that ever leaves you. And I finally figured out why these old people always do these 5 o'clock dinners. Well, they do that because that's their mentality. They want to save money every time they have a chance to do that.
Yeah.
So they continue that throughout their lifetime. And then there's the war, the World War II, that is almost inconceivable to people who haven't read about it or can relate to an experience where you take an 18-year-old kid and throw him into a foreign country and tell him to fire at the enemy and kill people. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah. Let's pause for 1 second because I'm seeing a little alert pop up here. Is Janelle nearby?
What if I press quit?
No, don't do quit. Let me see. Are there any other windows or programs open, or is this the only thing that you have open on your screen?
Well, I pressed quit and it went away.
Okay, cool. I think we're good then. All right, we'll continue from there. So with that mentality in this mindset that he ingrained in himself, like beyond that, his style and the way it developed is very interesting. Because a lot of people, I don't think when you first look at Kirby's work, you have a great appreciation for just the level of artistic ability it takes to do almost like an impressionistic style like that. Because looking at Kirby's old work, it was very structurally sound and not as exaggerated. What do you think it was for him that made him take that leap and develop his style into the Jack Kirby that we know?
Well, I think Kirby had the genius gene. So if you're kind of born with that, um, and you think like an Einstein or a Copernicus or something like that, wild things are going to come about in your lifetime of creativity. With Kirby, the farther back you go, as you just mentioned, James, you can see absolute classical training.
Yes.
Uh, Roz was telling me about drawings that he did when he was like 14 or 15, and they were Einsteinian in a level of accomplishment.
Yeah. There's a particular one from when I think he was like 14 or 15 of a person on a horse that is just illustriously illustrated and very proper anatomy and everything else. And then, people would never believe that was a Kirby piece if we didn't have the proof, right? Because he did have that artistic ability. And then when he was in comics, when he came back, he was really pushing the boundaries of what he did. Do you think that was to keep him interested, or because it was fun for him to change his style in that way?
I think it was both, and I think an evolving style is just a matter of evolution. Um, Kirby had the ability to work to turn out a lot of work, as we
Yeah.
all know, from the very beginning. And people would talk about the way he drew. That in itself is a fascination to me, endless fascination, because most people don't draw like that. They don't start in a corner or start at the bottom of a shoe and develop a perfectly proportioned figure from there. So that's another part of the gene that Kirby had. And if you're going to admire anyone, crying aloud, admire a genius so you can at least hope to get halfway as good as they are.
Absolutely. Did you get to watch him create? Did you get to watch him draw?
The last time I was at his house, I asked him to draw something for me. He threatened to beat me up.
Ah, yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, he was truly special. Do you have a favorite memory of the time that you got to spend with him?
Yeah, one of them was when I was hanging out at his house one evening. Um, there was a big picture on illustration board. It was big, like 20 by 30 at least, and it was a comic strip, a self-contained comic strip of a guy who was wandering through an ocean liner with all those round portholes that they
Yeah.
have. And Kirby had, for some reason, a Black Panther that was on board the ship, and he stuck his head out on one of those portholes, and it looked like a stuffed head mounted on a wall. And I started laughing uncontrollably. That being my weird sense of humor. And
Right,
Kirby
right.
looked at me like, "What's wrong with this guy?" Well, I'm sure he got as much of a kick out of me as I did hanging out with Jack.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's such a special memory. Like, only a handful of people can say that they had that level of interaction with him. So I appreciate you sharing that with me, because I'm slightly living vicariously from you to hear what he was like to be around. So that's really cool. Is his work still influence you to this day?
It will never stop influencing me because the ingraining of what he was and how he drew and everything about him is so deep within me that you couldn't remove it with a crowbar.
Yeah. Did that develop as a kid collecting comics? Did you find his work early on?
Yeah, I did. And the way I thought about that is anytime I saw his work, I always knew it was him because I was so young. I wasn't really into knowing the names of these guys. I knew it was a guy named Jack Kirby, but you could tell his work without ever having to see his signature on anything.
Yeah.
It was beyond what anyone else could do. It's just power personified.
Power, dynamics, like his figures look like they're moving through time and space. It's just so special. And I don't think there'll ever be another. He just truly broke the mold.
There could well be. If there is going to be another Kirby, it might take, I would say, at least 200 years before we find him. If comics are even around by then.
True.
Or print is still around.
Yeah, things are changing so much. In speaking a little bit about that change, like you've really leaned into being more active on your YouTube and everything. Like I've greatly enjoyed and learned so much from your live streams that you do and everything. So, and we talked a little bit before we started, like the technology side of things is not your jam. So what's that been like, kind of being like, okay, I do need to put myself out there, and people are, craving this type of, these type of tutorials and instructions from a legend like yourself. What was the impetus behind that and in deciding to start making more content on YouTube?
Well, it's kind of what you said, James. It's a need to get word out that this whole computerized art thing has been around for at no time at all in context of history.
Yeah.
So you take everything that was done computerized, which is the last billion years, and you bring it to people. You bring it in people's heads that this is the way art was meant to be. It was meant to be done with your hands and tools that can take the images in your head and make them real, and with a lot of training and perpetual curiosity, that's what makes a life worth living.
Yeah.
But the whole idea of pressing a keyboard or using a Cintiq and some fake kind of pencil to do what I've grown up with and learned through all these schools to do is crazy.
Yeah, you're a traditionalist through and through with your art, aren't you? You never have dabbled in the digital realm.
Somebody got me to actually hold one of those pencils and work on a screen just for comic release, and
it's hard. It doesn't feel the same.
Well, it never will to me. Obviously, the world has gone on to adapt it. Like I guess any kind of a pressing trend would assert itself on the current population. But it's not my thing. And furthermore, I don't feel the need to be part of it just because it's there.
Safe to say, I know your opinion about AI.
Well, AI, you know what? People are actually surprised by that. What I think about AI, I just think of it as another progression of technology, and it's not going to stop.
But in regards to art,
well, people keep inventing stuff.
Yeah.
And they will always invent stuff. Now, where this is going to go, honestly, let someone else worry about that. In the meantime, I'll just have a great time with my pencils and brushes and continue having a good time.
Yeah. Continue studying Kirby and having fun, right?
Kirby and anyone else who I think I can learn something from, which is pretty much everyone.
You a big fan of Norman Rockwell's work?
Norman Rockwell, I knew a bit about him through my teacher, one of my early teachers in Madison, Wisconsin, where I was going to a tech college. And this teacher that I had, Mr. Owen Campen, was an illustrator from the 1950s in the mold of James Avati was the big thing at the time. So everyone was trying to paint like him. But Campen actually worked at the famous artist school that was founded by Albert Dorn. He was one of the many people behind the scenes that made the engine run, where, it was a correspondence course, the famous artist course started by Dorn. And they would have salesmen go throughout the United States selling these courses. And they were expensive for the time, but well worth it. And I think Dorn was thinking of the future in that by the time his art course got off the ground, photography was making inroads, serious inroads into in the illustration field. And I think he had the foresight to think that if we don't do something about this, then everything learned from the past about how to be an illustrator and would go away. It's kind of like if you don't use it or talk about it or demonstrate it, it might go away.
Yeah.
So I think that's what was on Dorn's mind a lot. And so through Mr. Campen, he met the 12 faculty members of the school, which included Norman Rockwell. So he got to know him. And as Mr. Campen would say, I pissed in the same John with Norman Rockwell. But Rockwell, once you really look into what he did and was about, he could paint and draw as well as anyone in history. That's how good he was.
Yeah.
He could go up against anybody that ever lived and match their abilities. Not bad for a lower illustrator.
Not bad. Not bad at all. So along the lines of utilizing some of these modern technologies, you've also been having a lot of good success on Kickstarter and crowdfunding a lot of projects now, which I've noticed is really getting your name out there and getting more people aware about things like the Nexus animated series and through your How to Draw books. And you did that awesome How to Draw where it had a lot of Nexus stuff in there to where the character sheets and everything and all of that. So with Kickstarter, have you noticed like an uptick in the amount of representation you're getting and in the level of support that's coming up? Because it feels like each project, like each next project is getting funded quicker and quicker. What's that whole process been like for you?
Well, we have Janelle to thank for that, and my daughter, Jessica. They're the ones that are in tune with modern technology, and I just basically show up and give a speech every Saturday.
They say, get on the live stream. You got time to go to work.
It's been a slow start.
Yeah.
And very frustrating trying to understand what it takes to break through to a world of people that most of them have never heard of you before. But that's just the way it goes over the years. It's part of what you go through. But yeah, just a very slow climb, James. Very slow. Yeah. And very necessary because there's things I want to impart and there's things I stand for very strongly. One of which is traditional artwork and thinking behind it and why I do it and why it's important to keep it going. So those things are things I talk about on the live stream. And in the meantime, we're starting to gather more people contributing to what I call begging for money.
All right.
Really, and slowly we're starting to up our membership. And but it's honestly, I think if life was fair, I would have been a millionaire 20 years ago.
You would have. I agree. There's a lot of people that know who you are that would agree as well. It made me think of when I was talking about the character sheets, the character model sheets. I know a lot of aspiring artists, myself included, have trouble keeping a character on model as it would be. And that's kind of a term that I learned, from animation, to where the character is the character from whatever angle you're drawing it. The face doesn't change because it's a 3/4 view. Like, a lot of artists have trouble with this. Is that simply improved through more and more practice, like understanding your proportions, understanding your landmarks on the face for each specific character, and just practicing endlessly?
That's all it is.
I had a feeling that was the answer. No shortcut, right?
Um, if there's a shortcut, I think it would be something that would be transient, at least in your abilities. It would go away faster.
Yeah.
But when you have to work hard at something, it tends to stick around a lot longer than something that may have come to you in a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that form and, shape, in looking at animation and how each character has a specific way that they're drawn, to where any animator could go in there and work on the in-betweens and everything. Like, I think I always encourage aspiring artists to look into animation and that process for some of those fundamentals, because I really do think it does help keep you on model when you're drawing the same character.
Well, it helps to have an interest in everything. I can't think of anything I'm not interested in learning. In through the Nexus cartoon show, I've gone from, those model sheets, understanding those and working hard to make those representative of something that I want. It's also extremely hard to work a realistic style for a lot of animators.
Yeah.
I've tested a lot of them, and even some of the very best of the best have a hard time rendering a realistic figure and face. But to me, that was always my goal to begin with. So I've worked my whole life to learn how to do that, hopefully a little better and easier with every day of study, which I love to do. I just love to study. That's just kind of my way of acting. I see something I'm interested in and I copy it, and I perpetually keep copying. And through that, I think I've come up with, the so-called Steve Root style.
Yeah. What can you tell us about this new Nexus project that's been giving you fits?
Yeah, gladly. I kind of came to the conclusion that it's good to have a couple crises in life to wake you up and totally stop you from ever being complacent.
Yeah.
So I've kind of learned to embrace them. Like, here comes a crisis. Okay, well, what did you expect, Rude? But lately, I've gone from penciling very tight and working everything out ahead of time to not wanting to do that. And I don't really know why, but I just know it's a strong urging inside of me that, what do I do with it? Do I ignore it? Do I go back to what I was doing and feel and not feel right about doing that anymore? So it's just another life challenge that at the time we're going through it is an impossible. It's impossible to understand how you're going to get through it. But you do if you want it. If you want to get through it bad enough, and I have to get through it because I don't want life to be painful.
With penciling loosely, so I'm assuming that you are doing a lot of the drawing in the inking stage at that point, right?
Well, I seem to want to go to a certain point, James, of detail in rendering, and then I just want to get into the inks. And this is not the way I've drawn a comic ever before. Traditionally you pencil it and then you ink it, or in this case, you pencil it, you letter it, and then you ink it in a proper way. But I don't know what's going. I honestly just don't know what's going on right now with me. But I know what's inside of me, and I know it's contradicts everything I used to work with.
Yeah,
and it's proven to be everything you expect it to be: hard, worrisome, but ultimately just a huge challenge.
But you're listening to that. You're listening to that inner voice again.
Yeah, it's pretty.
That's driving you to do this. So you need to do it.
It's driving me crazy. That's how I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you writing this one as well? You came up with the story. You're illustrating it, and it sounds like you're traditionally lettering it as well.
Yeah, I actually love hand lettering things. To me that's fun, and it's also a huge challenge. And the fact that nobody's doing it anymore makes me want to support it even more.
Yeah,
every guy that's still hand lettering.
Yeah, that's unheard of.
Yeah, and this is a phenomenon that people need to take note of. It's the changes in life. So we went from doing everything one way for 100 years in comic strips and comic books, and suddenly these machines come along, and we don't have to hand letter, and we don't have to letter them on the page, so the artist knows what's going on from the script as much as they used to. So the thing is, when you're confronted by these things, you have to decide ultimately what you're going to do about it. And most people just say, well, that's the way it is. I guess I'm going to have to type out my balloon dialogue on a machine and paste it in. Well, I don't follow what others people do anyway. So, true to my nature, I like the idea of staying on course of what I know is going to be most rewarding for me, and just to keep doing it. And I kind of relate it to music, and like say, when all the changes happen all the time to every field. Like say the music field, Paul McCartney goes from being a Beatle to, having great success in the mid '70s, and then all these musical changes come in, the technical changes and the trends of what is popular. How does a guy like Paul McCartney adapt to that, or does he even adapt to that? He still needs to be Paul McCartney, and not someone else. So how a guy fits into that when these changes come along is one of life's big quandaries.
It seems like a lot of these changes are driven by productivity or producing more, especially in comics. Like I think a lot of the stuff has been driven by trying to help people get stuff out quicker or something. It's like little shortcuts, right? Like the pasting word balloons on and doing it all digitally and typing the text in the word balloons and putting it on, in post-production or whatever. So it's really refreshing to see somebody like yourself who's saying, no, I'm going to do it all myself, and I'm going to do it the old way and keep that authenticity about myself.
It seems to be my core self is I've never been a follower. I can't stand the idea of following others when their path is completely different from mine. And if you know yourself well enough, you know that you need to be what your insights tell you to be. You need to do that, and that's that part of you that comes from within. You don't argue with that, and if you do, you're going to lose.
Yeah. Now, there's something I've been dying to ask you, and I think I might know the answer, but are you fully invested now in Nexus and your own projects, like for the rest of your career? Or if somebody came to you with the Superman ongoing book, all of us fans would like to see you do, is it something that you would consider? Because your World's Finest run is some of the best work I've ever seen on Superman. Is that even something that would appeal to you if a project like that was presented to you? Or are you strictly set on doing your own projects and just working for yourself these days?
Well, looking over my entire career, I've had the opportunity to do pretty much every character I ever wanted. and had a great time doing it. And that took up the first, several decades of my life. Um, but the business of comics itself has been going downhill for so long, and the rates are poor, and there's all this what I call politically correct content going on, which I don't believe in, because that's a trend thing. It's not a truth of any kind. It's a transitory idea that's going to change with the wind in the next 5 years. So I don't follow that kind of garbage. So given that the industry is kind of engulfed in that thinking right now, there's no reason for me to go back.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're very fulfilled in what you're doing right now as well.
The Nexus work that I'm doing right now, Baron and I are both doing our own versions
Right.
of what we think is the best way to evolve the character. And I'm every challenge I've ever looked forward to, and it's obvious as I do the work every day and deal with a blank page, that this is going to be the rest of my life. Working on Nexus material,
Yeah.
new Nexus material. Yeah.
Well, as we get close to the end here, I wanted to give you an opportunity to let everybody know what they need to be looking out for here in the coming months, because I know you're pretty active with your Kickstarters. There's usually one running, and we want to make sure that we drive as many people there as possible. So what do you have in the works right now that people should be on the lookout for and be ready to back?
Well, one thing I want to bring up before I even get into that is whenever you see somebody going advertising a Kickstarter or their channel, their YouTube channel, they always say, I want you to ring that bell before you even see what they're all about.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, and I go on and say, well, why would you want to do that? And I say, don't ring any stupid bells unless you actually think that what you're getting from me is worth doing it for. But every moron in the world, it goes about doing it that way, which is kind of ass backwards. My life will continue to be working on comics. My life is comics. I love that more than anything else. The creative process of illustrated fiction in storytelling form is endlessly challenging. And the other day, I actually thought for the first time, I'd never thought like this before, but I thought, am I going to have enough time to do everything that I have ambitions for? And the answer is going to be no. So I guess the only thing you can do is remember why you're doing this, work as hard as you need to produce as much as you can in this lifetime, this brief lifetime that we have, and make sure it's worthy of the people that came before me, the Kirbys and the Hal Fosters and the Alex Raymonds and the illustrators that I love. I need to be part of that chain of what I consider to be the art that I'm most fond of and love the most, and do everything I can to impart the way I think and the people that I admire to others. So that's a huge part of it. You need to give back at this point when you reach your 60s for sure. But then there's just really the comic book Nexus that I'm doing, which seem to be big stories, like at least 100 pages.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there's that going. I think they're always going to be 100 pages or more. So there's that. So that's going to take up the time that all lives are made up of. And then if I ever get a proper offer or meet the right people to do the show with me, that's going to be full-time. And I'm constantly writing about it and writing my thoughts down at this point in my life. I've got, in my sketchbooks, I've got probably as many written notes to myself about what I want and what I'm worried about and what I struggle through and everything. Just a bunch of honest feedback to myself. as much as there are drawings in the sketchbook. So for whatever reason, that's kind of the format of what I'm involved in right now, writing my thoughts and then drawing my studies to keep myself knowing what I know, because I find that if you don't constantly reinforce what you've learned, it shouldn't be like this if life was fair, but you'll get worse in time if you don't constantly keep up that study part of your life.
Right.
That you need to constantly reinforce what you've learned so you don't get worse.
Yeah. And especially with art, because it's such a degrading skill set, right? Like you have to constantly be working on it. Like, you can take a break, and somebody like yourself who's been doing it for so long can get right back to it and not have slipped back too many steps. But somebody like me, if I don't draw every day and I take a week off and I get back to the page, I'm noticing it's way harder than it was a week ago.
Yeah, well, we're no different, James. That's exactly how I look at it too. And that's something that I think is good to talk about on the live streams. What I try to talk about on these live streams are the things that no one else ever talks about. Basically it's honest content, where I don't hide things. I don't shortchange people. I don't sugarcoat it. And I talk the way I only know how to talk, period, which is reveal, don't conceal. It's kind of how I say it.
Yeah.
Because nobody benefits from when you conceal something or pretend you're better than what you are. Frazetta never uses reference, or you can do everything out of his head in 5 minutes. That's the kind of stuff I wanted to dispel. It's just a bunch of nonsense.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the perception, though, isn't that people have?
Yeah, and I want to get rid of that stuff. It's not real life, and all it does is just make people feel even worse about the time they have to put into the work to be good at something.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember it was a big eye-opener for me when Jim Lee started drawing on his live streams, because I would see him do what I considered a beautiful figure, and then he would erase the whole thing or erase and I'm like, oh, Jim Lee erases all the time. Like he makes mistakes. And it was so relatable, because we have this perception of only seeing the finished work. And, oh, that's amazing, I could never do that. But to see him go through the trial and error process just like anybody else is so relatable, and removed a lot of stumbling blocks I think I was facing as an artist, trying to make it perfect right out the gate.
Yeah, that's most of what people used to talk about with their abilities and how they would pull things off. Back when it was allowable to do such things, it's just an illusion.
Yeah.
I make sure that I dispel every illusion that I possibly can to give people a fighting chance to do what they want to do in life, which is work hard and hopefully get better through hard work.
Well, I know you're not one for too much self-promotion and ringing the bell, but I want to encourage everybody to support your YouTube, because it's an amazing resource for any aspiring artists. I'm going to just say artists, not even comic artists, because that's really what you're teaching, is how to be an illustrator, how to be an artist. And I think that's so important. I remember my friend Ron Garney was critiquing one of my drawings, and he goes, James, stop calling yourself a comic artist. He's like, you need to look at yourself as an artist. You're saying I want to be a comic artist, but really you need to get good at the traditional fundamentals of art and illustration and to work on that. And that was another big revelation for me. Like, I'm putting myself in this box, but like you were saying, you're trying to learn as much as you can and be good at every aspect of art. You're not just narrowing it down to one medium or just pencil and ink comic art. You're saying, I want to learn it all.
That's right, and there's also kind of something that takes place as you age. If you're not someone who is self-delusional, and that is, you feel like you know far less in the context of every great artist that ever lived. I exist in a very low place, I would say, but not through lack of trying. I try really hard because I like doing that. I like trying really hard, and I like practicing. I love practicing. But if you look at me in the context of the entire history of great artists, I would say I barely rank.
That's a healthy approach to it.
But I love comics. Comics is just is where it's at.
Yeah.
You can't do anything in another field that you do in comic books, which is to draw. So you have to like to draw, and you want to see the things in your head, just like a novelist wants to see his words come to life. That's a life challenge, and it doesn't stop. It just keeps going.
I remember one of my favorite Kirby quotes about comics and the approach to creating comics that was like, what makes it so special is you're only limited by the cost of your tools and your pencil and your imagination. Like you have he would say you had an unlimited budget, like whatever your mind could come up with, you can do in comics. And that's the beautiful thing about it.
Yeah, it's if you can think like that, you're ahead of most people. The worst thing you can ever do is think you're more than what you are.
Yeah.
That's just 100% detrimental, and it's also painful to think you're better than you really are. And I like kind of feeling very self-effacing. It feels comfortable to me because all the people I've learned from are people I aspire to be as good as. And just aspiring is a noble pursuit in itself.
We've talked a lot about the legends that inspire you. Are there any current artists that you look at, you see their work and you pull from, or you're inspired by?
Yeah, there's current artists that I like. Especially if you go to the fine art field, there's amazing practitioners out there. And this is where I look at myself in context and see that these guys have abilities far above anything I could ever do or would want to do. What I want to do is be as good as the people that I bring up in interviews, like in comics, it would be, the ones I keep bringing up, Hal Foster and Jack Kirby and Paul Gulacy from Master of Kung Fu, and but the process, the fun of the process is you seeing what other people do and trying to and using that the way you should use it as something to make your own work stronger. That's fun for me. So I'm always a student. There's no such thing as mastery.
Yeah.
And to pretend there is how dummies think.
Yeah, I know this from martial arts training, many years of martial arts training. And it's like you get to the point where you're smart enough to know how much you don't actually know in the grand scheme of things. And I think that applies to art as well.
Well, Bruce Lee talked about, I don't know if he said this or it's something that I've made up on my own. I think it's something I've kind of made up on my own, but I think of knowledge in 3 steps. And it goes back to when you were trying to ride a bike. And the first stage is falling off the bike.
Right.
You can't even imagine how you could stay on these skinny 2 wheels and go forward from there. And the second stage is not falling off the bike and getting really good at riding the bike. And the third stage is forgetting you're even riding the bike. And I think that's kind of where I'm at right now, because if I try to explain things in normal terms, like the way other people are better at than I am, I have to come back to earth and regress my thinking. And I'm getting better at doing that because it's important for me to, when I'm talking to people on the website or the YouTube thing, you have to come down to earth and give them very specific and understandable terms that they can use when the live stream is off the air. They have to go back to their drawing board, and if they're not taking something with them that you imparted, then you're not doing a very good job of imparting stuff.
Very well said. As we come here to the end, is there anything else that you would like to promote or make everybody aware of?
To promote, no.
Okay.
It's like you said, James, I'm not a big promoter. I wish someone else would just take care of that. And I think most artists feel the same way. They want someone else to do their books and to do the promo. We just want to do the damn work. So I think the only people that are happy in life are those that have had a sense of what they need to do in their lifetime, because what everyone eventually finds out is that the years get faster and faster as you age.
They do.
The last year is gone by so fast, and I expect the rest of the years of my life to do exactly that. So I think it's a combination of thinking of people that died young and could never fulfill what they would still be doing were they alive, and remember how fragile life is, and knowing that you're still here. The happiest people are those that know they need to fulfill what they're here for and continue to do that, what they stand for, what they like to do. And then you're gone. So what do you have when you're gone? You need things that are, if you haven't done your part to pass on the things that you think are the most valuable to people who are coming up, which is the way the world works. You go from the youngest kid in town to the middle-aged kid, and then finally you're looking at people that you used to laugh at and say, well, I'll never be like that. Well, you are going to get like that, but young, that always helps, which I do all the time. I don't consider myself to be the age that I'm at, 68. It sounds ridiculous to me. But if you're not aware of what you need to be doing, and you're not doing it, you're not going to be happy. And your life is meant to be not miserable, but fulfilled and happy. I'm not a happy guy, but I feel very fulfilled, and that is kind of what props me up for the last 60 years, and will do tomorrow and the day after that until I'm not here anymore.
Well, sir, I can't think of any better way to end the episode. I appreciate you spending some time with me today. It was truly an honor. Hang out with me here for a moment while I give my little spiel before we end the show. Everybody, make sure, even though he will not promote himself, I'm going to promote him. I want to send you guys over to his YouTube channel. I want you to look up all the different Kickstarters that they have going on. If you just search his name over on Kickstarter, you'll be able to find that. The podcast now has a Patreon. If you want to give a little extra support, you can go to patreon.com/@Nerdy Mewzings. And in the meantime, everybody, keep it nerdy.